Hello, welcome to the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast, the NFL edition. We are in week 8, so we're almost halfway through the season. It's been an interesting season so far. We have an interesting week in week 8 with quite a few bye teams. I'll just quickly run through those. Cardinals, Packers, Jaguars, Rams, Giants, and Titans. So definitely a different week than normal with just the abbreviated player pool. We're going to get into that. We're going to do our regular schedule segments. As always, I'm joined by fellow FantasyLabs guys, Peter Jennings, a.k.a. CSU Ran 88, and Matthew Freedman. And then this week's special guest, Evan Silva, who is a senior football editor at Rotoworld and friend of the pod, been on a couple times before. Evan, always great having you on. How are you, man?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. You guys asked me to be on a week 2. I was just losing my mind at that time, and I was like, I can't do it, But we start to get some bye weeks, and just this is a sweet week. Like, I'm like almost done with my article like already, and usually I'm like right up against it to finish it like as of Thursday night. So it's really relaxing. I might like go see a movie or something this week. But thanks so much for having me on, and this is, and we talked about this before the show. I tried to make a lineup on DraftKings before the show, and it was like impossible. So I'll be very interested to see if you guys have come up with any like good value plays, because I was really, really struggling.
Yeah, it's going to be tough, but we'll dive into that. Yeah, it's we were talking pre-pod. It is a little less intense of a week, so we all got a glass of wine, a glass of beer. We're sort of relaxing, talking football. Evan started off with his glass of wine, and then Freedman here is
the champagne of beers,
keeping it classy with the Miller High Life.
Cheers, boys! Let's get a cheers in there, huh?
Cheers.
Cheers, guys! A little internet cheers right there. It's pretty nice.
That's right. Cool, Pete. How was your week? You did a lineup review for FantasyLabs up on the site, up on our YouTube page. Good week for you, huh?
Yeah, I lost a couple houses in September, and hopefully can afford to get some food and pay my bills going forward after last week. Really good week. Took second in the 3K on FD, won the primetime Thunderdome, and had a good cash there. And basically across the board had over 100% ROI on the weekend. So trying to battle back from a rough start. The week started off with some extra tilt with Amari Cooper finally going off. Probably wouldn't be on this podcast. Would probably be on an island somewhere. He would have done that week 6. But, things are starting to trend a little bit better. And my only disappointment about this week is that Wentz went off on Monday night, which actually needed. But I was going to be all in on the Eagles no matter what. Now we have the Jason Peters news, and I also feel for Jordan Hicks, who ruptured his Achilles, and obviously I can relate to that. So, it's a tough week, and I feel like ownership's going to be concentrated on the guys I like, which is kind of a bummer.
Okay, well, let's dive into our show here. We're going to start with a segment that we do every week. It's called Real or Fake. We're going to go around the board here, give a real trend and something that might be fake. It could be from week 7, or it could just be throughout the season. Freeman, I'll start with you. First off, how are you doing? Second off, is your real or fake trend have to do with how bad you were in props in week 7?
I'm doing all right, despite the fact that I was, I believe, 2-12 in props last week, which is definitely, I think, the worst anyone's done this year. However, Levitan and CSU Ram did put up some stinkers last year, so I'm not all-time bad, just very close to being all-time bad. But, I'm doing all right.
Is that a trend that we expect that's real or fake, Freedman?
It's probably, unfortunately, real. I was just total trash. I'll try to get better, but in terms of a real trend, I think the Saints' commitment to the running game, I think that's pretty real. So each year of the Sean Payton era, relative to the league, the Saints have skewed toward the pass, except for one year, and that was in Pete Carmichael's first year as the offensive coordinator, and that was the year that they had a 3-headed backfield, the year that they won a Super Bowl. And I think the signing of Adrian Peterson in the offseason, even though that didn't go as planned, that still indicated that the team wanted to get back to being the type of unit that could run the ball if they wanted to. And we're seeing them start to go in more of that direction with the two-headed backfield they have now. So I think it's good things for Ingram and Kamara ahead. I think that also means that we're going to see a little bit less of Breeze. I mean, we've seen that so far. He just hasn't had the volume this year that he's had in previous years. He's still doing, relatively well, but he's just not throwing it all the time. And so I think it's just a little more pessimism with Breeze moving forward, especially when they're not playing at home. In terms of a fake trend, I'm going with Bill Lazor as a difference-making play caller for the Bengals. I think he's basically just I don't want to say he's another version of Ernie Zampese, but I don't know how much we can expect the play calling to change in the middle of a season once everything is already kind of in place, the wheels are going. I don't think it's outrageous for us to expect that the Bengals would struggle in weeks 1 and 2 going against good defenses, do really well in weeks 3 and 4, and then struggle again in weeks 5 and 7 going against tough defenses. I think what we saw in weeks 3 and 4 was just the Bengals, a mediocre team, doing what they should do against bad defenses. So I think I'm basically for AJ Green treating him as a guy who's kind of similar to Julio Jones, getting a lot of targets, but not getting targets near the red zone, which is kind of what we care about. So Bill Lazor, I'm not buying him as someone who's really making a difference for the Bengals.
He's going to be a good play caller this week, though.
Yes, this week he's a wonderful play caller.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah, it's an interesting season. We do this every week, and some of our answers change each week. It's just a weird season where it's hard to figure out can you really be confident that 2 or 3 teams are absolutely elite? It seems like we know that there are some teams that are really bad, but as far as gauging teams, power ranking them, it's tough to do this year, and we're seeing some interesting DFS slates as a result. Evan, what are some things, just real or fake, that are standing out to you either from last week or just the whole season?
This notion that the Patriots defense has all of a sudden improved because they haven't given up a lot of points in the last 3 weeks. First of all, points allowed is just a garbage way to evaluate defense. It's a completely result-based fan, way to look at things. Jameis Winston threw it all over the yard against him in week 5. Josh McCown did the same thing against them in week 6. And in week 7, of course, it was on a national stage, but Matt Ryan just played terribly, and there was a fog on the field. And Matt Ryan, actually, that was his second best fantasy game of the season. And Julio Jones had his best fantasy game of the season. And again, points allowed is so much dependent upon your opponent, and they may actually end up finishing okay. They've given up the 10th most points per game in the NFL, which is not good. But they actually may end up finishing again in the as a good team in terms of points allowed because their schedule is so easy. They have the easiest schedule in the NFL the rest of the way. You look at the offenses that they're going to face, and they're not going to give up a lot of points because guess what? The teams they're playing don't score a lot of points. So they don't actually have a good defense, and they haven't had a good defense for a long time. They actually gave up not many. They might have given up the fewest points in the league last year, but they faced just this cupcake schedule. They were facing backup quarterbacks every week. So, think a little bit deeper when you're evaluating defenses. I think that a real trend, and this is recent because LaShawn McCoy opened the season and he entered week 7 as a prime positive touchdown regression candidate. Of course, scores twice. And we're talking about schedules, which are so important. He has the easiest run defense schedule in the league the rest of the way. So pending that LaShawn McCoy is able to stay healthy, which is always an obstacle for any running back in the NFL, he should really crush it going forward. And especially with their, lack of pass catchers, he's just going to be a target machine every single week. He actually almost scored 3 touchdowns last week, except on the first drive, like Tyrod's short throw was just a little too hot for him to handle right there near the end zone. And he came very close to scoring 3 touchdowns last week. But I think that the arrow is going to continue to teeter up on him.
Good calls. Pete, I'll finish with you. What are some real or fake things that you're picking out this week?
Well, fake is me doing well on the props. We all know that's fake, given the history of how poorly I've done in general. So that's a lock. In addition to that, I mean, there's a couple things like this Broncos team playing so poorly and the defense playing poorly. Obviously, a little biased. I think that's a little fake. They had a lot of injuries on the offensive line. That was a really, really bad matchup. The Chargers defense really played well. And obviously, when you're beat up at the offensive line, you want to run into Ingram and Bosa. So I think they'll be able to return back to a decent offense, not a good offense, especially if they can run the ball and get a little healthier on the offensive line. And then real, super biased, and Pete, hot take special. I'm going to say that Amari Cooper, not this performance is real, but we're going to see a lot of big things from Amari Cooper down the stretch, I hope. So I'm buying that. I've been long Amari Cooper all year, and hopefully I can win some more props with you guys with Cooper versus Crabtree.
Always on brand, Peter Jennings. I like it. All right, let's keep on moving here. The next segment we're going to talk about is the chalk. So first things first, when we're making lineups this week, who are the first players that we're tending to lock in? Who are some of the chalky plays that we're fine with being in our cash game core? I will preface this as usual that we are recording Tuesday night. So obviously things can change, like Leonard Fournette. We got the news Sunday morning that he was out. Chris Ivory obviously became the chalk at that point. So we're doing our best to diagnose who the chalk might be as of right now based on matchups and stuff, but definitely follow along with our other content throughout the week. Evan, I'll start with you. It is an interesting week. Pricing is fairly tight, but do you have an idea of some guys that you think might be chalky?
Yeah, they're mostly at the top because – they're really, to me right now, there are not a lot of guys toward the bottom who stand out. And we will talk about this a little bit more, I think, in the next segment. But LaShawn McCoy against the Raiders, he should be chalky. He's really expensive. Carson Wentz, I think he's the 3rd highest priced quarterback on DK. He should be super, super chalky against the 49ers. They're giving up the most plays per game to opposing offenses. And I mean, they gave up the quarterback 1 week to Kirk Cousins in week 6, and last week the quarterback 2 week to Dak Prescott. Kirk Cousins against Dallas, that game I think it right now is the highest total on the slate. Kirk Cousins has fared pretty well against Rod Marinelli's defenses, and Rod Marinelli's defense is not very good. Tyrod Taylor, I think he wound up being pretty heavily owned on DK last week. He was not heavily owned on FanDuel, and he wound up being an excellent play at his price. And he's in a great spot. He has significant home road splits since the beginning of the 2016 season. And he always adds that element with his legs, and the Raiders, coming across the country and going to a really difficult place to play and just not very good on defense adds up for, I think, another good week for Tyrod Taylor. Mark Ingram against the Bears. The Bears have an okay run defense, but as Freedman alluded to, this Saints running game is very, very much for real, and he's going to be a significant home favorite. As a guy who's seeing 26 and 30 touches since they traded Adrian Peterson. Keenan Allen at New England looks like a solid matchup play in a game that I think could shoot out. Dalton, A.J. Green, unfortunately, DK priced him as the highest priced receiver on the entire slate. Eagles defense, I think, is a huge smash. Unfortunately, priced as the highest defense on DK. Russell Wilson, I think, is going to be an awesome play this week. There has been significant sharp money on the over in Seahawks-Texans early in the week, and Russell Wilson has been a top 5 fantasy quarterback in 3 of his last 4 games. They're a team that sort of has a tendency to start slow. Multiple years in a row this has happened, and then they'll finally find a groove, and Russell Wilson is just balling right now. And then Hunter Henry against the Patriots. Patriots have not been very good against tight ends. And then, that kind of rounds it out for me.
Awesome. Yeah, Pete, what are your thoughts on some of those guys that Evan mentioned, and anyone else stand out?
That was the best analysis we've had of the chalk so far this year on our Tuesday pod, so thank you for that, Evan. Yeah, I mean, the Eagles stand out to me in general. We want to target the Eagles here. Defense, Wentz. I love all the pass catchers. I mean, Ertz is expensive, so we might not be able to get him. He might not be chalked just because roster construction, but Aguilar, Jeffrey, Ertz, all those guys make sense. I'm sure there'll be clamor for the running backs too. I guess there's some uncertainty just around all the different guys who get opportunity with the Eagles, but it's an amazing spot. They should put up a ton of points. The Peters news does hurt it a little bit, but I still think it'll end up being chalk. In terms of running backs, like looking at stuff now, like Mixon's rating well on our thing, but on in the models, but just came out that he needs to be more mature. He's complaining and some things, and he obviously had all the off-field issues. Never good to hear a player like him, have quote-unquote immaturity issues, kind of the same thing we have with Martavis Bryant. Christian McCaffrey on DraftKings I could see gaining some momentum in terms of just getting touted and whatnot this week. Obviously one of the best pass-catching backs in the NFL. Should see a lot of opportunity against Tampa Bay, but they are getting healthier on defense. I agree with Evan. I think LaShawn McCoy will be really chalky. I like him. I love Kamara, but I guess that's probably more of a pivot play. I've been on Kamara basically every week. But yeah, it's tough just looking through this. I mean, the receiver position's really tough. I guess I like AJ Green too, but again, now we're starting to name all these really expensive guys.
What about the Carolina guys, Pete?
Yeah, the offensive line for the Panthers is a little beat up. That concerns me. Evan might be able to chime in more if they're getting healthier, but that's a little bit of a concern. I do Kelvin Benjamin should be a good play. I don't know. This Tampa Bay defense just got a lot healthier last week. That's one thing that I need to kind of sort through. I like Michael Thomas too. The Bears are somewhat of a funnel defense, although they played really good this last week. He's someone I guess is probably more of a pivot, but yeah, it's kind of hard for me to identify like the clear chalk. I mean, DraftKings is really tough to build around. Do you guys have a preference on any of these Eagles running backs? Do you think Smallwood could be chalky or Blunt?
So I'll just say one for both of you guys saying like it's really hard to talk about the chalk. You guys nailed like every single player I wanted to talk about. I think Blunt, I don't know if he's going to be super chalky, but I do like him in this situation just throughout his career, not even just with New England, but throughout his whole career as a substantial home favorite. He's totally cleaned up, had over a touchdown per game. And I think it's a pretty good spot for him. I would like to hear Evan's thoughts on Michael Thomas and specifically going against that Bears defense. It seems like that defense gets better each week, but it's kind of hard to know because there's just a lot of uncertainty there. And specifically that secondary, how good do you think that secondary is and how it can match up against Breeze and the wide receivers there in New Orleans?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. So what we've seen from Michael Thomas individually so far is that he's been like a steady player. I mean, he's led the Saints in targets in every game they've played so far, but I don't think he has. I think last week was his most with 11. He hasn't had any spiked weeks so far, and the Bears did go through a period earlier in the season where they were facing like Mike Evans and Antonio Brown, and some of those dudes had spiked weeks. But last couple of weeks, they held in check Kelvin Benjamin. Their secondary is healthy. Amukamara, when he is healthy, is real solid. I mean, right now he is, I think, number 16 in Pro Football Focus's cornerback grades. Kyle Fuller, a guy who they tried to trade not too long ago, has stepped up and become a starter. Their slot corner, Bryce Callahan, a guy who they found like as an undrafted free agent, he's like one of the best slot corners in the league. I think that the way that I'm viewing Michael Thomas right now is just that he's a pretty high floor play, and I don't know if he has that spiked week potential right now. He's gone over 80 yards in 4 of his last 5. But without like the potential to have, 17 target games, which we will see sometimes from guys like T.Y. Hilton or Amari Cooper or, certainly Antonio Brown. We just haven't seen that from Michael Thomas. And that expectation, of having a game like that is lowered by the fact that the Saints are so good in the running game right now. So, I mean, look, I really like Michael Thomas as a floor play. I think it's fair to question his ceiling right
now. Yeah. That's fair. Okay, let's talk about some of the chalky pivots, chalky fades, and the potential pivots away from those guys. Which chalky players are we looking to pivot away from? We named a bunch, so maybe some we're less enthused about than others, and then some of the guys around them that we might want to pivot to, or maybe we want to pivot by using a different roster construction. Pete, who stands out to you in that regard?
All right, so I don't know if Mark Ingram's going to be chalk at all, but I'm going to Kamara, and I wanted to talk about him a little bit more. Kamara, to me, is like literally the perfect DraftKings play. He's come so close to getting in the box the last couple of weeks. Obviously, had that big game in London. To me, he's the perfect type of player for DraftKings. He's a running back who plays more like a receiver. I do think it's going to be really tough for the Saints to run the ball effectively versus Bears front, so I expect them to throw a little bit more than they have been. I think that sets up really well for Kamara. I think that they'll try to utilize him and try to get him matched up against linebackers and safeties, and he should win that matchup all day long. And when you look at the pricing for the running backs, I mean, it's really, really tight. And he's, kind of at a pretty nice price tag relative to some other guys. I mean, Ingram's now $7,400. He's $5,900. We saw those guys at the same price just a couple weeks ago. So he's someone that I like. At the quarterback position, if you're going to go away from someone like Carson Wentz, I liked what Evan said up front. I really like Kirk Cousins. He was going to be someone I was going to mention as kind of a pivot play. I don't mind stacking him with Thompson either. I'm curious your guys' take on that. I think that's a good way to get a little bit of leverage away from
Thompson or Kamara, Pete?
Thompson.
They're close in price, yeah.
I like stacking Cousins with Thompson. I like both those guys in terms of just players I like. I mean, if I had to pick one, man, I'm a little biased towards Kamara. I've been waiting for him, but I think it's really, really close. I think right now we have Thompson projected about 2 points higher, so that seems somewhat reasonable to me. I mean, there's a variety of different ways. I just don't know exactly what the chalk's going to be. Trying to find some value in this mid-tier wide receiver could be the key. I imagine Aguilar and Jeffrey will be pretty heavily owned. So maybe going to the New England guys. The New England guys aren't super expensive. You have Cooks at $6,800, Hogan at $6,500. Obviously, they didn't perform huge on a big national televised game, but I think that fog really contributed to the passing game not being as effective.
Freedman, what are your thoughts on some chalky fades and some pivots that we're looking at?
Yeah, so I think some of this has to do with Andy Dalton. He hasn't done particularly well, but obviously he has a good matchup, so I'm unsure how heavily owned he will be if people are privileging what he's done recently or his matchup. So I'll be curious to see what people throughout the week start saying about him, because if it looks like he's going to be under-owned, he's a really interesting guy. I don't mind pivoting off of Zeke or even McCoy or Ingram in tournaments and going to someone like Melvin Gordon, who's a road dog but still a 3-down back, going against the Patriots team that is, as Evan has said, really isn't all that good on defense. And is allowing the 4th most fantasy points in the league to opposing backfields. So I like him as a potential pivot. I mentioned Blunt earlier. If people start going towards Smallwood because he has the ability to catch passes out of the backfield, then Blunt isn't like your typical DraftKings running back. He's a guy I would be interested in. I'm interested in Hopkins. I'll be curious to see what people say about him, but no wide receiver playing in Seattle is ever that heavily owned. But he still leads the league in market share with 35% of his team's targets. He still has the most receiving touchdowns in the league with 6, even though his team is coming off of a bye. Like he still has the potential to have 100 yards and 2 touchdowns against the Seahawks defense, which is still good, but not quite as good as it was a couple of years ago. So I'm interested in him as a pivot. And then I think one way to be kind of contrarian with the Eagles is to get off of Ertz. And I know that might sound crazy. Ertz is a fantastic player. But if the 49ers are good at one thing on earth, this year it's been on shutting down tight ends. And I think because of what Ertz has done up to this point in the season, even though his salary is elevated, if people are going for that game, they will try to get on Ertz. But Jaquiski Tart, he is still playing safety for the team. They've moved Eric Reed to linebacker because Tart has done such a good job. He's like the only guy in that secondary who's actually doing anything worthwhile. And his job for that game, I think, is basically going to be man-on-man with Ertz as much as possible. And it's not that he's great, but he might be good enough to make Ertz at his elevated salary just a little too expensive. So Ertz is, I think, a potential chalky guy that I would be getting away from.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that point, Freedman. Silva, finish us out here on some chalky fades and pivot plays.
So I think that a guy that could become chalky, and I mean, I've never seen a guy who caught, 3 passes for 36 yards get this much attention, but it's Josh Doxson. Josh Doxson is 3,900 on DK. We're going to be really, searching for value. You can tell yourself a nice story about Josh Doxson. He ran 40 routes last week. He got the start over Terrell Pryor. He was a first-round pick. The coaching staff is saying good things about him. He's playing the Cowboys, highest total game of the week. He's cheap. We need cap relief. But just no one in this offense is heavily targeted. Jordan Reed, if you go and look through all their games, no one's getting big targets. I mean, the team leader in targets is averaging 6 targets right now. It was actually Terrell Pryor averaging 5.8 targets per game entering Monday night. And they just have so many guys that they can get the ball to. And Kirk Cousins is that sort of lowercase Drew Brees where he spreads it around. So I'm not sure that a big game is really even in Josh Doxson's potential range of outcomes. He did look good though, I thought, on Monday night, on that on the stiff arm. He's a big, strong kid. But he's getting a lot of hype right now. I think he might end up being a chalk play on DK this week.
He was awesome at TCU. I liked him a lot in college football DFS, total stud. I was wrong about Pryor. I was hoping Pryor might get it going in this matchup here. One of those guys similar to Amari Cooper, underperforming relative to his talent, but very clear they didn't give him as many snaps. They're not looking to him. The coaches are kind of trying to get opportunities for Grant and Doxson more. So Pryor, someone who I don't expect to bounce back really. He had some bad drops too last game. Unfortunate. That was a big investment they made in him, and it's just not looking good. So, yeah, tough situation there with the Redskins receivers, but great points by Evan.
Fun fact, Josh Doxson 3.9 on DK, Martavis Bryant 3.8. If we had took odds on whether Doxson would be priced over Martavis Bryant at any point this season, probably could have made some good money there. All right, let's keep on moving here. Let's talk about some conventional stacks. Let's hop right into it. Freeman, I'll start with you.
So we haven't really talked about Breeze as someone to target, but and again, he's not getting the volume that he has previously. But if the Bears defense performs in a stout manner against the run game, and if the Saints start to revert back to their old ways of throwing the ball a lot, they're in the Superdome. It could be a good spot there. So I like Breeze to Michael Thomas, Ted Ginn, not Kobe Fleener, but we'll see if Willie Snead plays. Not sure about the hamstring issues with him, but definitely fine there. Wentz to Jeffrey. I think Jeffrey is in a really great spot here. The 49ers have the worst trio, or maybe not the worst, but probably the worst trio of starting cornerbacks in the league. It's bad. So I think he's in a great spot there. And then Dalton to Green is someone looking at. And I'm also fine with Mixon and the Bengals defense if you wanted to go away from the running game there and go kind of more conventional with running back and defense. I like that too.
Cool. Evan, who are some of the conventional stacks you're looking at?
Definitely Wentz to Ertz. Freedman was talking up Jaquiski Tart, and I mean he deserves to be talked up. But Ertz is just matchup proof. I mean we've seen him bust through a couple of like what looked to be difficult matchups on paper so far. Leads all tight ends in targets, catches, yards, and touchdowns. And they're like these on-field quarterback pass catcher bonds or something to bet on. I think. With that said, if Alshon, if I think by the end of the week that Wentz to Alshon would be like the lowest owned combination there, because people are going to be on Aguilar. I think it was Pete that mentioned Aguilar earlier. I think he could become very popular too, as we're like really searching for value. But I think that Wentz to Alshon, I really like that one. Kirk Cousins to Jordan Reed, I think will probably still be relatively low owned. Just people don't trust Jordan Reed. I think Vernon Davis had more yards than him last week. People will see that in the box score. It'll scare him off. Phillip Rivers to Keenan Allen or Hunter Henry. Facing this Patriots defense that has given up 300-plus passing yards in 6 of 7 games. The only game not being Matt Ryan's second best fantasy game of the season. And then McCown to ASJ. I mean, McCown, this is another quarterback pass catcher bonds to. I mean, I'm gonna have exposure to this pretty much every single week because this is real and McCown is cheap and ASJ, can score touchdowns. So I'm going to have a couple of McCown to ASJ stacks every single week.
Pete, what are your thoughts?
Love all the calls. Keenan Allen, the Rivers Keenan Allen, I absolutely love this week. I think that's a great pivot. Might end up being a little bit chalkier than we think, but that's one of my favorites overall. All the Wentz stacks I think make a lot of sense. Andy Dalton to AJ Green I think will be really popular. You guys hit on some of the big ones. I do think Brady to Gronk and Brady to these guys is interesting. I'm not sure that falls in the chalk or pivot situation, but that's another kind of spot that I think could be intriguing this week as well.
Given the tough pricing, Pete, do you think that we've talked about some of these really nice quarterbacks, like Carson Wentz and stuff like that. Do you think Andy Dalton is sort of like the lead right now for the chalky cash game guy?
Yeah, maybe. I still want to play Wentz. I mean, I was planning on playing Wentz no matter what, but I guess the chalkiness in Peters and the lack of value could make me go away from him to someone like Dalton. But, yeah, I mean, I talked about it a lot last year, and it's finally coming to fruition more this year. I mean, Wentz is a freak athlete at his position, too. I mean, we saw some great runs from him last week. Obviously, the one where he escaped where it looked like he was going to be sacked. That really buoys your floor, and we'll see more rushing touchdowns from him too, I think, down the road, especially as they encourage him to scramble in the red zone. I think that's something that we'll see a lot more of too. So I love the kind of the floor and upside with Wentz, but yeah, we'll probably need savings at quarterback, and I could see Dalton being that guy. I could see Jameis Winston peaking up there potentially. Kirk Cousins, another guy. Rivers, maybe even McCown. I don't know. A quarterback outside of Wentz is kind of up in the air for me at this point.
Yeah.
Another note on Wentz, the 49ers have allowed the 7th most rushing yards to quarterbacks and a league-high 3 rushing touchdowns to quarterbacks for whatever that's worth.
Oh, yeah. Tons of play at a great pace for opposing offenses. They're awful. I mean, it's a dream spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the most interesting question as we go through this week is there going to be enough value where we can get up to Wentz, or do we have to drop down just because the pricing's so tight? Let's keep on moving here. Let's talk about some advanced and contrarian stacks. Evan, I'll start with you on this one. Who are some contrarian stacks you're looking at?
So you guys already mentioned Dalton to Green is chalky, and that probably will become chalk, but that was one that I had written down. I think Dak to Zeke every single week. These guys are playable in the same lineups. This is a shootout team. Dak's, they're going to have to score a lot of points every single week. They're certainly going to have to score a lot of points against the Redskins. Zeke's receiving usage is way up from last year. Breeze plus Ingram or Breeze plus Kamara. I think we already kind of touched on that, but I think those guys are correlate just fine. And then Dak to Jason Witten. So Jason Witten, the dad runner at Levitan probably hates him. He's real old. But the Redskins have allowed the most fantasy points and yards in the league to tight ends. And Jason Witten, he's been playing all right. He's the number 2 option in that passing game. We've seen Cole Beasley and Terrence Williams and Bryce Butler. Cole Beasley's role is much smaller than it was last year. Cole Beasley hasn't even gone. He hasn't reached 50 yards in a game since last Thanksgiving. And so the matchup is there, and Witten, he's playing pretty well. He had a one-handed touchdown catch last week, beating your boy Freedman, Jaquiski Tart.
Yeah, one-handed catch. That was sexy. That's no dad runner right there. Just hauls it in. Nice little toe tap for Jason Witten. I make fun of guys like that all the time. I never roster players like that in general. Although, as good of a week as I had last week, guys, I made the worst mistake I've made all year objectively. I'm on a site where there's a kicker, obviously on FD. I had a Dak, Zeke, Witten stack that was looking really good, and I had Myers in as my kicker. I missed the Myers getting waived news, and with like 15 minutes to go, I had Crosby in a couple tournament teams, and I realized I wanted to get off him, and I did so in haste and clicked Myers. So
at least you did click Santos, Freedman.
Yeah, Santos forever.
Yeah, he said Santos on the pod. I clicked Myers in a $1,500 tournament, so that's
Mr. Tuttle was saying that he played Myers too.
Yeah, no, the only people, he was like 4% owned. The only people who were on him were Mr. Tuttle and I. So bad. Yeah, I wanted to be happy. It was by far my best week, and I felt like I made some sharp moves, but easily the most objectively biggest mistake I made is playing a guy who was cut. Just egregious. So make sure when you're changing lineups at the end, consult our FantasyLabs projections for those kickers. I did not do that. I made the change with like 10 minutes to go, so pretty big mistake.
You have to bring that up on the 3 donkeys, Pete.
That was an all-time donkey move. Absolutely. I did find it nice that Tuttle made the same mistake. So
there you go.
Misery enjoys company.
Freeman, what are your thoughts on some contrarian stacks?
Because the Saints are implied for such a high total and we're bullish on Kamara and Ingram, I don't mind stacking them together. I think it's a possibility that both of them have pretty big games, especially because Kamara has the ability to do a lot of his damage as a pass catcher. So I don't mind that. I also like Brady with guys other than Hogan or Cooks because I think it's really tempting for people to lock in those outside receivers. But I think Amendola, James White, Gronk, I think you attack the Chargers in the middle of the field. They're pretty stout with their 2 outside corners. And so I think whoever it is that you think has the potential to match up well in the middle of the field, that's a decent stack there.
Cool. And Pete, I'll finish with you. We saw Tyrod and LaShawn be sort of a quarterback running back that is usually a little less owned than a quarterback wide receiver. You think maybe that's a route to go with, we have Chris Thompson, and if you really like Kamara here?
Yeah, I absolutely do think it's a way to go. And I'll throw out another stack that I think could be really good. And one of the most tilting things if you owned this player last week was Jimmy Graham literally dropping the easiest touchdown of all time in the end zone. And then the next drive has a pass where there's not a single player within 10 yards of him. He has the ball thrown right to his hands. He drops it as he's turning to run. And I like the stack of going back to him, Russell Wilson to Jimmy Graham. I thought Evan made some really sharp points about Seattle as an offense here. Obviously, this Houston defense has had a ton of injuries. And Wilson is definitely a guy who gets going later in the year. November, historically, I believe, has been his best month. November, December, I can't remember which one. But we're getting close to that time. I think this is a good spot for them. Deshaun Watson's been dynamic, so it could be a shootout to some degree. Obviously, the Seattle defense is very good, but I like Russell Wilson to Jimmy Graham as a contrarian stack.
Cool. All right, let's get into some bold calls here before we get into our props. Each week, I ask each one of these guys to give me one bold real football call and one bold DFS call. Freedman, I'll start with you here. Give me a couple bold calls.
All right, so the Texans, I'm going to say that they win outright is 5.5 road dogs in Seattle. I like their offense, and I think their defense is just good enough to get the win there. And then I'm going with Blunt, 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Cool. I like it. Short and sweet. Evan, I'll kick to you next. What are some bold calls you're willing to make here?
One of my bold calls directly contradicts Freedman's about the Texans Seahawks game.
Good. Let's just start the prop action now. This counts
really,
as one.
Yeah, really. Seahawks dropped 40 on the Texans.
Sure. Hey, the Texans will score 50, so it still works.
No, the Texans score 15, and we get the over. But the Seahawks are, again, people realize how good the Seahawks actually are. So Russell Wilson, again, playing really, really well. I think that the Seahawks have finally started to find their identity as an offense. They kind of just realize that they're not a great running team and they can't play that way, and they need to be a pass-first team. And if you look at the Texans' defensive losses since last season, so I'm just going to rattle off these names, okay? J.J. Watt, Whitney Merciless, A.J. Boye, Kevin Johnson is due back this week. He was their first-round corner. He shut down A.J. Green in a Monday Night Football game last year. He's supposedly due back, but, I mean, they've been missing him. Brian Cushing due to suspension. Quentin Demps, who led them in interceptions last season, he's now with the Bears, although he is on IR. John Simon, who has been the best outside linebacker for the Colts. And, of course, Vince Wilfork, who retired. So that's essentially your starting lineup and your entire defense. And their defense is trash right now. And I don't think that people have really realized it because the only game that we have seen, the game that we have seen from them lately was the Kevin Hogan game. And look, there was a reason that people were on Kevin Hogan in that game. And one of them was that we didn't really have a lot of respect for the Texans defense. But the Texans have been on a bye in the meantime, and people have just kind of forgotten about them. I think Russell Wilson is just going to light them up in this game. I hope that the Texans score because I made this like one of my biggest sports bets of the week on the over. But I think that the Seahawks smash them.
I like it. Maybe a good game stack here. Pete.
Freedman, how are you feeling after that?
It's fine. So I don't think that the Houston defense is good. I think it's just good enough, and that Seattle's offense is still just dysfunctional enough for them to be able to pull it off. And I think it will be a shootout. Like I could see that being a game that goes close to over 50. I think that's easily possible. So I'm still fine with it. Like I would expect Houston, if they win, for it to be a close game and a high scoring game.
At Bet Online, it was 42.5 as of Tuesday morning. No, today's Tuesday. As of Monday afternoon, and it is up to 46.5.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see if it can get through the 47 because that's that would be a real huge move. I mean, the move has already been huge. Through the 43 is big. But if we could get it through the 47, that'd be badass.
Yeah.
Pete, where's some book calls?
Nice. Yeah, it's a really good call on that game. In terms of a real-life NFL call, it's probably the most biased take you can make. But I'm going to say the Broncos go in and fucking win in Arrowhead. I'm going to call it right now. I'm going to say the Broncos bounce back. The one I like better that is interesting, we were talking about at the Action Network, guys, San Francisco getting 13 points is intriguing to me. I can't call like a win. I'm really high, obviously, on Wentz and this Eagles team, but 13 points is a lot. Hard to back San Francisco if they lose by 30 to the Cowboys. But that's another one on like a real interesting one just from a spreads perspective that I think is intriguing. The Broncos one obviously is just biased and totally my shtick here with the Broncos. But I do think the Chiefs still are slightly overrated right now. In terms of DFS for a bold call, I'm going to stick with Kamara. I'm going to say Kamara is top 5 running back this week. He catches at least 7 balls and finally gets into the end zone for a touchdown, and hopefully is on the Millionaire Maker team that starts with CSU Ram 88. That's what I'm hoping for.
I think the Chiefs really are fraudulent. I think their defense is bad. They played good run defense in like their first 2 games. They've just gotten slaughtered by the run in like 5 straight. You know, I don't like. It's funny. Like we, as you know, as fantasy analysts and DFS players, we enter the season. We know exactly where to attack the Chiefs defense. We want to try to figure out what receivers are running at Terrence Mitchell and, you know, the slot corner, whoever it is. You know, it's been Philly Gaines so far this year. And it takes a little while for the offensive coordinators to figure that out. Like we already know that, you know, but it takes them a little while to really figure that out. And then when they do, it's just like, you know, balls are just raining on Terrence Mitchell's head, you know. And so, and last year, man, remember that game? It was later in the season. It was an Emmanuel Sanders monster game, and I was on Demarius that week, and it was so frustrating. Pete, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I remember the game. Emmanuel, I think, had 3 touchdowns or something.
Man.
I can't remember which week it was in, but man, that's been a tough duo. And Demarius Thomas, talk about tilting, that 81-yard catch called back. There's no flag on the field, or no flag on the screen at first, and then of course it comes back. But yeah, those 2 are tough to figure out. But I do think Kansas City is a team that in general is overrated. I think you made some good points. It's just tough when they're at home in Arrowhead. That's one of the toughest places to play. But yeah, I think this is an interesting week for GPPs because there's only so many games. There's some clear spots in terms of offenses to target, but it's hard to make lineups. So I do think that there could be some really creative roster constructions that could do really well this week.
All right, let's get to the part of the show that everyone's been waiting for, the prop bets. Let me run through last week, and then I'll give you some year-to-date rankings. Last week, Pete, I mean, he crushed. He crushed the world. He went 19-4. He was all over Kamara against guys like Melvin Gordon, Jay Ajayi, so he obviously crushed there. He was also over the Saints in general. Instead of the Packers, Max and Freedman were on the Packers. So, yeah, Pete demolished them, 19-4. Freedman, the opposite, went 2-12. Good job, Freedman. Let's see here. Max went 3-6. I went 1-3. Year to date, Peter is a double nice, 69-69. Pete, you battled your way back to 500. That's impressive.
Yeah, my wife didn't like Eric Decker this week, but she's going to like that record, so that's good news for me. Eric Decker, my goodness, I talked about him. My wife, huge Emmanuel Sanders, Eric Decker fan. She told me to play Eric Decker, so that didn't work out too well, but at least she'll be proud of my record.
Yeah. I mean, it was possible to still cash with Eric Decker in cash because of –
Yeah, I had him in cash.
Yeah. Freeman on the year, 63-71. I am 39-37. And then our guests continue just to crush us all. They're 55-41. So Evan's got a nice little cushion heading into this week. All right, so let's get into it. I'll let you guys throw out whatever props. Maybe we can start with this.
Let's start with Ertz.
Okay, I'll start with Ertz. All right.
All right, let's go, Evan. What do you think?
I'm so bad at this. So
right now we have him projected at 15.9.
Okay.
I'll take the over.
You'll take the over? Here's the thing. I think that's probably fair. I think he will go over that, but I don't think he's going to have a massive, like, even over 15.9 doesn't mean he's good enough for a GPP lineup. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely not at that price.
Yeah, that's the thing. For me, it's a price sensitivity issue with why I would be interested in fading. Like, he's only $100 cheaper than Gronk. You know, so
what do you want to propose here?
Do you want Gronk over him?
So it's 15.9. I would say, yeah, I'll take Gronk over Ertz.
I'll do that if you give me at least something close on the projections. You want to settle on like 16.5 or something like that?
Let's see. So the projections, it's 15.9 for Ertz and 15.7 for Gronk.
Yeah, so that's a good one. That's a great one. Is those two versus each other?
Yeah,
but,
I'll take Gronk over Ertz.
Okay, well, I'll take Ertz, but can we get a projection too?
Sure. Okay, so
What do you want to do? 16.5 or something? We'll give you a little benefit.
Yeah, 16.5. I'll take the under on 16.5.
Silva, you want any on either of those?
I like Ertz this week.
That's so great. Yeah, so he'll take both of them.
Okay, the over and against Gronk.
All right, we obviously have Cooper versus Crabtree locked in.
Yeah.
Did you get those in the record last week, Brian?
Yeah, I did. I did put it in the record. I'm not going to do that to you, Pete. I like how you didn't bring it up any week, but after Cooper goes off, you're bringing it up right away.
I'm gloating big time. I'm 2-5 on that prop.
Freedman and Evan, do you guys want to take just the point spread on this the Seahawks game?
Yeah, I'll do that if Evan's up for it. It's I think
now
it's 5.5.
Can I double down on this? Can I double down? Okay.
Sure. Yeah, why not? What's the spread right now? It's 5.5?
5.5. That's what we have through Sports Insights and on the Vegas page. So yeah, I'll take Houston with the 5.5. Cool. All right. Let's get it going. Actually, before we get further on this, I would be interested because we didn't talk about where are they? Steelers.
That's on the slate.
It's on FanDuel, right? It's still on the FanDuel main slate. Evan, do you have any quick thoughts on the Steelers-Lions game?
I haven't gotten to that game yet, so
okay.
I don't. But I mean, I think that Le'Veon just crushes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, all right. Let's get going. The reason why I'm asking is because I would be interested in some sort of prop where I take Le'Veon and maybe like one or two other people, or we do some sort of draft. But I'll take Bell, and then you guys can get some of the picks after that. Do we just want to start there?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a good idea. So you start.
I'll have pick 1, 4, and 6.
Yep, just like we did last week. So you want 1, 4, and 6. You're taking Le'Veon first?
Yeah, I'll do Bell first.
Okay, I'll draft with you next. Let me just pull up, and this is all games, right?
Yep.
Sure. Let's do let's do main slate games.
Yeah, I won't take Kareem Hunt. Okay. But you already took Le'Veon, who's not main slate.
Well, he's main slate on FanDuel.
Okay. All right. So no one from the Monday night game.
Yeah.
And I get 2, 3, and 4. All right. I'll take Zeke, McCoy.
No. You get 2 and 3. I get 4. You get 5.
Oh, okay. All right.
I get 6. Yeah.
I'll take Zeke and I'll take McCoy.
Sure. I'll take Ingram.
Okay. I will take. And this is DraftKings scoring.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah.
I will take Melvin Gordon.
Yeah.
This one.
I like that. Okay. I will do Devontae Freeman.
Melvin Gordon got outscored by Austin Eckler last week, by the
way. Melvin Gordon, it sucks. He's so inefficient.
He legit is bad.
Yeah.
He's bad.
Yeah. Okay.
18 attempts for 38 yards.
He's so inefficient. Evan, do you want to in on the draft?
No, I want to talk Amari Cooper.
All right.
Are you long Amari Cooper this week, or are you short Amari Cooper this week?
I always long Amari Cooper.
Yeah, Silva and I just
I'm
going
totally
down
on your side, Pete. Totally on your side.
We were DMing one of the weeks where we're like, "Oh, this is Amari Cooper's week. We're looking good." I was like, "Oh yes," and he shit the bed really hard. That was not good.
I mean, I just think it's like laughable how people say, "Oh, he's not good." Like, there have been only 8 receivers in NFL history to have more receiving yards in their first 2 seasons than Amari Cooper, and he was younger than all of them.
Yeah, he's still only 23 right now. Bales told me this after like week 5 or 6. He's like, well, maybe it's pretty clear at this point that Amari Cooper's not that good. And I'm like, Bales,
No.
not the time, buddy.
So here's the interesting thing about Cooper. Because he is such a big play receiver, I think on a weekly basis, like it's almost always okay to have a short position on him. But I think the long-term position is to be pro Cooper, like easily pro Cooper.
This matchup's not that good. That's one concern I have, Evan. What do you think?
This week, I think it's okay. The issue for him is that, he has like a high variance role. They use him as like an X receiver, like a true X receiver, and they wouldn't like proactively put him in like positive situations, and he gets the number one cornerback each week. You can tell that the defenses think he's friggin' good. Even though some people on Twitter don't think he's good because he draws the number one corner each week. And then so he gets a bunch of difficult matchups and his quarterback gets hurt and all of a sudden he sucks, and he has, a bunch of drops in a small sample size and all of a sudden he sucks. Like, what a horrible, horrible take that was. And look, he could go back and be a dog this week, 4 catches for 20, and he's still like a really, really good player. I really liked what the Raiders did with him last week. They moved him inside. He ran almost 40% of his routes in the slot. That's an easy way to get him the football. And it's hard when you're just running down the sideline against the best cornerbacks in the NFL every week, and your quarterback is hurt or E.J. Manuel.
What I like what Evan's saying, and what's interesting is that someone like Amari Cooper doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, but someone like T.Y. Hilton, who isn't as talented but is still like that high variance type of receiver, like Andrew Luck is gone and people just, it's not his fault. He doesn't have a good quarterback throwing him the ball. He's just a high variance type of guy. Like, he's still pacing for his 5th straight, 1,000-yard season. Like, he's still a good player. It's interesting that we still accept that he's like maybe still a top 10 wide receiver. If Cooper has a bad game, people are trashing him.
It's amazing how much crap I've gotten on Twitter about that guy. It's unbelievable that he was doing poorly. People are just, it's just like I get it. I understand when he does poorly, and there's been some bad drops, and PFF had him as one of the worst graded receivers, and he certainly hasn't been efficient this year outside of that Thursday night game. But he's 23 years old, and he's a freak athlete, and like Evan pointed out, the other teams view him as the number one threat. And that's why I get so frustrated, and everyone's like, oh, Crabtree's clearly better than him. Crabtree's been very good in the red zone. But
every defensive coordinator in the NFL disagrees with that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think people are just trolling you at this point, Pete, though.
Okay, so
yeah, probably.
So right now we have Cooper at 12.6. I think that's a little bit low, but I'd be willing to give action on the under if you guys want.
Yeah, let's say. This is a classic one where his mean's going to be way higher than his median.
Yeah.
So it's not that bad to take the under on that, honestly. And dude, this is a tough matchup going into the Ralph. I know I haven't talked about, but yeah, the Bills have given up like maybe 1 passing touchdown, 2 passing touchdowns so far this year.
Evan, what do you think about Tre'Davious White or just the Buffalo secondary in general?
Yeah, so I have I had a take here on this written down. I guess not. They had given up 2 touchdown passes in their first 5 games, and then last week, Jameis Winston went there and lit them up.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Now, 2 of the touchdowns were scored on plays where the Bills didn't even cover O.J. Howard.
Right.
And then Mike Evans scored the other touchdown. A.J. Green had a monster game against him, and so did Mike Evans. And so if the Raiders are going to use Amari Cooper in this fantasy-friendly manner and get him lined up against Leonard Johnson in the slot, who Leonard Johnson has played for like half the teams in the NFL, it's going to happen again, Pete. So let's do this.
This is dangerous.
Yeah.
For Pete. This is dangerous. Snowball.
This is not dangerous. This is not dangerous. I'm ready to go all in again. I replenished my bankroll a little bit. I don't have to go out on the streets begging for money. There's nothing like going all in on Amari Cooper. What could possibly go wrong?
What could go wrong?
It is like a 1 p.m. Eastern time game at the Ralph, so don't know, what is their scoring expectation even here? You know, I don't know what their team total is, probably like around.
Yeah, their
20.
implied total is 21.5 right now.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's basically 3 touchdowns for Amari Cooper, right? 21 points. That's the way I look at it. Do we have any love for these running backs too? We didn't hit on Rashard or Latavius, or we didn't hit on
DeAndre Washington.
DeAndre Washington and Rashard. I love DeAndre Washington in college too, and he's looked good to me at times. Rashard's obviously a good pass catching back. Do we have any interest in them, or just too tough of a spot?
Evan, what do you think about those guys?
I feel like they're going to end up being owned on DK, like maybe significantly.
Yeah, they're both super cheap.
Yeah.
My one concern would be that, like, I mean, obviously it's a timeshare. We don't really have any
it's an even split, I think.
Yeah, we don't have any inclination right now if they will use either of those guys in a workhorse role, and all indications are that they won't, just based on how they've used them before. So I think it's hard, especially against Buffalo, which has, I think, a pretty decent defense. It's hard to use two backups in a timeshare, even if they're cheap, who are on the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a situation like this last year where they both came open, right, against the Chargers. And I don't think either of them really did anything, and that was a much better matchup because the Chargers were playing terrible run defense like they usually do.
Okay, so let's see here. Hopkins is right now projected for 15. I'll take the over on that if anyone wants the under.
It's projected right at 15?
Yeah.
You want the under?
I want the over.
Oh, you want the over? Sure, I'll give you action on that.
Yeah.
I'll take the under too.
Yeah, I think that's sharp. I mean, it could be bad, but
I think it's fair. I think it's a reasonable line. I mean, he's going to get volume still, just not the best matchup.
No.
All right, let me get. I was going to get some Amari Cooper takes out there. Let's get to Kamara. I want to get some leverage on Kamara again, my boy.
Yeah, you won all of. Yeah, you had like 7 props just on Kamara last week and won them all.
Yeah, I mean, he could have gone so ham last week. So frustrating.
He
had a good game, but
hey, we talked about this earlier. Do you want him straight up over Chris Thompson?
Not really. I like Chris Thompson too, but yeah, I'll take it if you want it, Brian.
Sure.
I like Thompson though.
Yeah, I mean we have Thompson a couple points ahead of him in our models right now. I think that's probably fair.
Hey, give me a 1.5 points, and I'll take Kamara on 1.5 points versus Thompson.
Sure.
All right.
Can I jump in on that?
Probably still a smidge low, but
I want Pete's side on that. I want the Kamara side.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take Kamara too.
Uh-oh, Brian's going to get scared. This is over his weekly volume. 3 units right here.
It's not that the volume. It's that it's all on one prop. That's the real killer. It's too leveraged.
It could work out really well. I like Thompson quite a bit this week. Yeah, I mean, if you guys want to do – I'm trying to think of what would be reasonable. Like Kamara – I'd let you take anyone under Kamara. I mean, you have Jay Ajayi there. Who else is in that range?
Hey, I'll take Blunt versus Kamara if you give me a couple of points.
Sure, I'll give you 2.5.
Okay.
It's about right
on DK?
Yeah.
On DK? Man,
yeah.
Freedman. I mean, Blunt is such like a FanDuel play. I got to play this.
No, I know.
Yeah. He's cheap on FanDuel too.
He's waiting for the Blunt 100-yard 2-touchdown game where you don't even need any catches. Yeah.
Hey,
I don't know what else is out there. Like, what else we can do?
What are we talking? I mean, talk about like some defenses or something.
What are your guys' thoughts on this? Is this game in here the Minnesota game? Is that in the main slate?
London.
Oh, that's London.
Yeah.
Okay.
Luckily, I didn't say I'm on the home team. That would have been another donkey move that I'm
yeah, especially since the home team is the home team is Cleveland, so that would have been donkey all the way around.
All right, I got one. Tom Brady finishes outside of the top 7 quarterbacks, so he has to finish quarterback 8 or lower.
I'm in. Tom Brady top 7. I'll take it.
Okay.
You want Tom Brady's the top 7?
And it will be nice to have on the all slates, not just the main. It'd be nice to have him.
Does anyone want any?
Stop some.
Yeah,
I'm going to take the Evan side on that.
All right, perfect. Getting some leverage on Tom Brady can't be bad.
nice. Does anyone want anyone?
Why don't you like him this week? Because you think the Chargers defensive line is going to own the Patriots offensive line again, or like similar as I did last week?
Yeah, I think that the Chargers pass defense as a unit is really good.
Yeah, they get a lot of pressure on the quarterback.
Yeah,
it's Bosa and Ingram, but then it's also the 5 nickel backs. Like the nickel package is really good. In terms of PFF, like I don't think one of those guys is graded lower than like 75 or something like that. Like they're just solid all the way around.
Right. No, that's fair.
Yeah, they found this dude, Trevor Williams. He was like undrafted at Penn State. He played receiver at Penn State, and like he was, Big Ten honorable mention as a senior or something. And he had like a great workout before sometimes you just take shots on dudes who are athletic, and that will help you. I mean, Trevor Williams is like he's higher in PFF's grades than Casey Hayward right now.
Wow. That's strong. All right. Well, that's a good take. Let's do some more quarterback stuff. We haven't had a quarterback. I'll take Wentz versus any quarterback.
Yeah, that was the one I was going to throw out there too.
Anyone want to take someone else other than Wentz straight up?
I'll do Breeze.
Okay.
I think it might be interesting to do a draft where you get.
We could do a draft 1, 2, 1, a 2 versus 2. You go 1, then 2, 3, then 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because
you guys want to do that?
I think that's more interesting than just 1 versus 1 because I think we all sort of like Wentz is the top guy.
I'll go 1 versus everyone just because I want to take Wentz. So I guess I'll start off with you, Freedman. I'll take Wentz.
Okay. Let me see here. And
our Wentz Breeze one can still stand, by the way, if you wanted to, just that so you have more volume.
Sure. And highest scoring quarterback, not combination of the 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, whoever ends up the highest scoring out of the 4.
Got it. Okay.
Scoring.
Okay. I will do Breeze, and then I will also do Rivers.
Okay. I'm already leveraged on Brady enough, so I'm going to pass on Brady. I'm going to go Wentz, and I'm debating Cousins versus Dak.
Yeah.
You have Wilson there.
Yeah, those are like the 3 interesting ones that you just named.
I will take Cousins. Who do you like out of those 3 right now, Evan? Cousins, Dak, Wilson. Have to choose one, drafting, scoring.
Oh, he's on Wilson, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that Cousins has like the best floor,
I guess Wilson.
Although Dak has a crazy floor. Like he's been top 12 every single week this year. I think he was top 12 in all but like 4 or 5 starts last year. So those guys are the floor plays, and Russ is your real high variance dude, where he's just a spike or a total dud. I would take like Russell Wilson and Cam, and try to go for like something big, like try to grab some rushing TDs. I mean, I still don't respect this Buccaneers defense yet, and I know they've gotten guys back, but I need to see more. I need to see them actually play well. I mean, Tyrod and Shady and Deontay Thompson. Deontay Thompson was ripping like they signed him 5 days before the game. And he ripped like 3 deep balls against him. Brent Grimes isn't what he used to be. They essentially demoted Vernon Hargreaves, their 2016 first-round pick at corner. They're dead last in the NFL in sacks. They have 7 sacks through 6 games. It'll probably end up being like last year where they were just terrible in the first half, and they get healthy and they're good in the back half. But until they really show signs of that, I want to keep betting against them.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you want to do a draft, Brian or Evan? Or I take Wentz and you get 2 quarterbacks. You want Cam and Wilson?
I mean, that's not optimal.
Yeah. Who do you want to take? I got Wentz, and you can take any 2 quarterbacks.
How about you take somebody a little lower? All
right. Well, we'll take Wentz and Breeze off the board. How about that? And I won't take Russell Wilson first either. What do you think about that, Evan?
All right, I'll take Dak then. I'll take Dak.
Okay, so so who am I taking first? I got to figure out who I'm taking.
You're taking Wentz, right?
I want to take Wentz. How about this? I'll take Wentz, and then you can take 3 quarterbacks in a row, and then I'll take the next 2. Okay.
Okay.
3 versus 3. I got Wentz. You can take anyone else you want.
All right. I will take Dak Prescott, Cam Newton, and Russell Wilson.
Okay. And I will follow it with Kirk Cousins, and I won't take Breeze or Brady. We'll take them off the board, and I will take Andy Dalton.
Wow. You're like the pocket passer, enthusiast.
No, I'm definitely not. I definitely am not. I like the runners. I played Dak and Cash last week and Tyrod, so I'm not I want the runners. This week it doesn't look good though. Wentz is not a pocket passer, by the way. He's best on the move. He throws well in the pocket too, but he's a guy who can definitely maneuver well.
Yeah,
he scrambles. That's where his best plays come from, is when he's dancing around and dodging sacks, and then he finds someone who's kind of escaped open. Yeah, let's move to defenses, though. Let's finish with defenses. You guys want to get some props and Ds?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
All right. I'll do the same thing with the draft. I want the 1 pick, though. We can do 1 and then 3 defenses, and then I get 5, 6. You guys want to do that?
Main slate only?
Yeah.
All slates. That's fine. Or whatever.
Okay, all slates.
They price these damn defenses, perfectly.
Tilting, huh? So.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Pete, go ahead.
All right, I want Philly D.
And how many did we get? So, but we can get
3 in a row, and then I get 2, and it's highest scoring defense.
Okay.
Are you just feeling the Eagles' onslaught here, or what?
Oh yeah. It's a little disappointing that Peters went down and then Hicks went down, but yeah, Eagles onslaught. I was Dallas onslaught last week, and that's what kind of brought home the bacon last week. But a lot of my Dallas onslaughts also had Beathard and a little bit of Garcon and Kittles, which wasn't as good.
I'm going to do – so you said all games, Pete?
Yeah, all games. You can take 3 in a row.
We can get
all right. Yeah, so I'm doing Vikings. I'm doing Bengals.
Yeah.
And I'm doing Saints.
Okay. Against you. Actually, do you guys want to all pick first and then have me rattle off? So I'm taking Eagles across the board. Or should I go first, Freedman?
No, I'll go ahead and pick against you. Actually, those were my top 3 teams as well. So I'll take what Freedman has.
You're doing the same still, but who do you want?
All the teams that already got taken.
You want the same teams as those guys?
Trendsetter.
Okay, fine. Perfect. I'll take Kansas City defense, and I'll take Baltimore defense.
Yeah, Kansas City was interesting.
Yeah.
I had a nice hedge there for my terrible Broncos bias. I was get a prop in there. Kansas City defense and the Broncos' pathetic offensive line. Any other thoughts on defense here? I think it's pretty clear Philly, Minnesota look really good. Baltimore is interesting to me. Is there any contrarian defenses that you guys like so far this week?
Seahawks are going to mess up that terrible that overrated Texans offense that has just played a cupcake schedule.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
I think
I really like that.
I think Pittsburgh at 2-9 is not terrible.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's been really good. They're definitely looking like a really good defense.
They get a lot of sacks.
Watson was someone I was wrong on. I love Watson for college football DFS. Thought he was a dynamic athlete who teams should probably take a chance on, but I was really discouraged by his velocity. You had never seen a quarterback have success in the NFL with really low velocity, and they talked about it. I think he had the lowest velocity in the combine, and they said he had dead arm or whatever, but even now, he doesn't have a huge cannon arm, but he uses his athleticism to make plays. And I don't know if teams get more film on him. I imagine that might mitigate some of his effectiveness. But
it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting. Pro Football Focus did an article on him today. He's been one of the least accurate passers in the NFL since he took over. But I mean, he's been awesome in fantasy. I've been playing him, since that Patriots game. I've always had some GPP exposure. Used him in cash 1 week, and but I'm still kind of on the fence with him, like long term. I don't know, Freedman. Are you sold on him?
Well, I mean, I think I'm in the boat where it's the sample is too small to be sold on anyone yet. So just like, Goff was horrible last year and now he seems competent this year, right? Like it's just with young quarterbacks, it takes a long time, I think, to know what you're seeing. I think the thing with Watson is that the arm strength thing, I mean, and you guys might have different opinions on this. I'd like to know because it's such a small sample with quarterbacks anyway, but I think the arm strength thing is overrated. Especially when it comes to quarterbacks who have more of a diverse skill set. So he has the capability to run, which I think mitigates his weak arm. Dak didn't have great arm velocity coming into the league. Tyrod Taylor, exactly. And so guys who have that dual threat capacity, I think they can mitigate. And we've never seen a player with the weak arm who's actually been that productive in college, who has that type of draft pedigree. So we saw someone like, what was his name? Vikings drafted him out of Florida State.
Ponder
had such a weak arm, right? And so people will point to like Ponder, they'll point to Chad Henne, they'll point to like Jake Locker. Point to guys who weren't nearly as good in college as Watson was. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if it's a great comparison just because those guys, like, I never thought they were going to be good NFL quarterbacks. So, I don't know if it really counts. So I think it's an interesting test case with Watson, and then also with Trubisky, who had similar arm strength, a little bit stronger of an arm, but still like not that good in terms of arm velocity. But a guy who, like Watson, is pretty athletic, had good running capability in college. Obviously didn't have the sustained track record of production, but like based on those two guys, we're going to get some sort of idea of what arm strength actually means. I think up to this point, a lot of NFL teams have just correlated it with like, oh, this guy can't play quarterback. But I mean, I think we've seen like Peyton Manning had such a weak arm at the end of his career, but because he was just a smart quarterback and able to make good decisions, he was able to function at a really high level with a weak arm. I think, if Watson is that type of player, if he can make good adjustments at the line of scrimmage and anticipate throws and stuff like that, he could still be very good even with a weak arm.
For Trubisky, no wide receivers anywhere around Chicago. It's brutal. Gosh. All right. I guess we're going to end
it there. Deontay Thompson. They had Deontay Thompson,
Yeah. Didn't know what they had, apparently. Oh, gosh. All right. We are going to end it there. Thank you guys for listening or watching if you are on YouTube. Thanks to Evan for coming back on the podcast. Evan, thanks, man.
Thanks so much, guys. I had a blast talking football with you guys.
Yeah, not to kiss Evan's ass too much, but thanks to Evan for getting DFS going. I remember 2012 thinking I was smart because I was reading Silva's article. And, that was literally all you needed to do to win basically back in the day was read Silva's article. So shout out, Silva. You're the godfather of fantasy, and appreciate all the work you've done to build the industry, man.
Thanks, homie. Appreciate that.
All right, we'll end it there. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll talk to you guys for week 9.